friends. I trust that we are all okay this afternoon. We thank God once again for His grace and His mercy, and we thank Him for the gift of life. This afternoon, we are looking at Genesis chapter 37, and we are looking at Joseph's dreams. Let's hear what chapter 37 of Genesis has for us. Verse 1 says, So Jacob settled again in the land of Canaan, where his father had lived as a foreigner. Verse 2, this is the account of Jacob and his family. When Joseph was 17 years old, he often tended his father's flocks. He worked for his half-brothers, the sons of his father's wives, Bilhah and Zilpah. But Joseph reported to his father some of the bad things his brothers were doing. Verse 3, Jacob loved Joseph more than any of his other children, because Joseph had been born to him in his old age. So one day Jacob had a special gift made. For Joseph, a beautiful robe, verse 4. But his brothers hated Joseph because their father loved him more than the rest of them. They couldn't say a kind word to him. Verse 5, one night Joseph had a dream. When he told his brothers about it, they hated him even more than ever. Listen to this dream, he said. We were out in the field tying up bundles of grain. Suddenly my bundle stood up, and your bundles all gathered around and bowed low before mine. And verse 8, his brothers responded, So you think you will be our king, do you? Do you actually think you reign over us? And they hated him all the more because of his dreams and the way he talked about them. Verse 9, So Joseph had another dream, and again he told his brothers about it. Listen, I've had another dream, he said. The sun, moon, and 11 stars bowed low before me. Verse 10, this time he told the dream to his father as well as to his brothers. But his father scolded him. What kind of dream is that? He asked. Will your mother and I and your brothers actually come and bow to the ground before you? Verse 11, but while his brothers were jealous of Joseph, his father wondered what the dream meant. Verse 12, soon after this, Joseph's brothers went to pasture their father's flocks at Shechem. When they had been gone for some time, Jacob said to Joseph, your brothers are pasturing the sheep at Shechem. Get ready and I'll send you to them. I'm ready to go, Joseph replied. Verse 14, go and see how your brothers and flocks are getting along, Jacob said. Then come back and bring me a report. So Jacob sent him on his way, and Joseph traveled to Shechem from their home in the valley of Hebron. When he arrived there, a man from the area noticed him wandering around the countryside. What are you looking for? He asked. Verse 16, I am looking for my brothers, Joseph replied. Do you know where they are pasturing their sheep? Yes, the man told him. They have moved on from here, but I heard them say, let's go on to Dothan. So Joseph followed his brothers to Dothan and found them there. Verse 18. When Joseph's brothers saw him coming, they recognized him in the distance. As he approached, they made plans to kill him. Here comes the dreamer, they said. Come on, let's kill him and throw him into one of these cisterns. We can tell our father a wild animal has eaten him. Then we will see what becomes of his dreams. Verse 21. But when Reuben heard of their scheme, he came to Joseph's rescue. Let's not kill him, he said. Why should we shed any blood? Let's just throw him into this empty cistern here in the wilderness. Then he will die without our laying a hand on him. Reuben was secretly planning to rescue Joseph and return him to his father. So when Joseph arrived, his brothers ripped off the beautiful robe he was wearing. Then they grabbed him and threw him into the cistern. Now the cistern was empty. There was no water in it. Then just as they were sitting down to eat, they looked up and saw a caravan of camels in the distance coming toward them. It was a group of Ishmaelite traders taking a load of gum, balm, and aromatic resin from Gilead down to Egypt. Verse 26, Judah said to his brothers, what will we gain by killing our brother? We'd have to cover up the crime. Instead of hurting him, let's sell him to those Ishmaelite traders. After all, he is our brother, our own flesh and blood, and his brothers agreed. So when the Ishmaelites, who were Midianite traders, came by, Joseph's brothers pulled him out of the cistern and sold him to them for 20 pieces of silver, and the traders took him to Egypt. Verse 29, sometime later Reuben returned to get Joseph out of the cistern. When he discovered that Joseph was missing, he tore his clothes in grief. Then he went back to his brothers and lamented, the boy is gone. What will I do now? Verse 31, then his brothers killed a young goat and dipped Joseph's robe in its blood. They sent the beautiful robe to their father with this message, look at what we found. Doesn't this belong to your son? Their father recognized it. Yes, he said, if it is my son's robe, a wild animal must have eaten him. Joseph has clearly been torn to pieces. Verse 34, then Jacob tore his clothes and dressed himself in burlap. He mourned deeply for his son for a long time. His family all tried to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted. I will go to my grave mourning for my son, he would say, and then he would say, and then he would weep. Meanwhile, the Midianite traders arrived in Egypt, where they sold Joseph to Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. Potiphar was captain of the palace guard. This is the story of Joseph and his dreams. And the first part of our chapter tells us about Joseph being 17 years old and tending sheep with his half-brothers, that is Bilhah and Zilpah's sons. And what was happening was that his brothers were actually doing some bad things when they were pasturing the flocks, but we are not told what exactly they were doing. So Joseph will watch them, and when they got home, Joseph would tell his father what they were doing. So this was something that Joseph did, and they were not very happy with him for doing what he did. And if we are to look at the whole thing, they were wrong by doing those bad things. And Joseph, maybe he didn't want them to get into trouble. That's why he told his father about them. He was thinking that if he told his father and his father spoke to them, they would stop doing those things that they were doing. And Jacob didn't help the situation because he loved Joseph more than his brothers, or more than his other children. And he made him this coat of many colors. But he didn't make everyone that coat of many colors. So this actually divided the family, which was not the right thing to do as a parent. He was supposed to be fair to everyone. And if he made a coat of many colors for Joseph, he was supposed to make rather coats for all the other children, so that it's fair to everyone. That wasn't a good thing that Jacob did in this instance. And what do we learn from there? We should not have favorite children. Let's love all our children equally. And because of what he did, his brother Joseph's brothers did not like him, and it was two things that they didn't like him about: the fact that he was reporting them, and the fact that he was loved by his father. The reason that Jacob gave for loving Joseph more than the other brothers was that he had him when he was old. But all his children were supposed to be loved equally. So that wasn't a good reason for actually picking up Joseph and loving him more than the other brothers. He did not do the right thing. As parents, we are not supposed to love our children. We are not supposed to pick up some children and love them more than the others. Let's love them all equally. And Joseph's situation doesn't get even better, because when he had these dreams, one considering the bundles that they were gathering in the field, and the one of the sun, the moon, and the stars, he told them his dreams. He was so excited, he was happy to share these dreams with his brothers, but they weren't happy. They weren't happy about the fact that he was going to rule over them. But who else was he going to show? Rather, who else was he going to share with his dreams? He was supposed to share these dreams with his family. And it's sad that everybody did not like the fact that he was sharing these dreams with them. But he didn't see any problem with doing that. And he wasn't wrong by doing that. He was very right. He was supposed to share the dreams with his family. But the family wasn't very happy, including Jacob himself, because the last dream he actually scolded him. Why should you scold your child for telling you their dream? This family was not functioning properly. There was no love in this family. The family was divided. As families, we should not be divided. If we do that, we invite enemies into our families. If we are divided, the enemy can easily come in if as a family we are divided. And the story goes on. The brothers go out again to pasture, and Joseph is sent by his father to follow them and check if they are okay. When they saw him, they actually planned to kill him. It was only Reuben that rescued the situation. He said to them, no, we can't kill our brother. The hatred had gone too far. It had become very, very deep. because they were even planning to kill their own brother. This family was in serious and in deep trouble. And Jacob didn't even see that there was so much hatred within the family. And he wasn't a responsible father. He wasn't a responsible leader. Because how could these things go this far and get to this point when he was there as the leader of the house, as the head of the house? The other children are planning to kill their brother. This was very sad. Reuben saved the day. He said to them, let's put him in a pit. And then what he was planning to rescue him and actually send him back to Jacob. What happened was that they put them in this pit. I think Reuben must have gone somewhere and left the other brothers. And they decided that they will actually they saw the Ishmaelites that were going down to Egypt. And they decided that no, we should not kill him. Let's sell him to these Ishmaelites. And they did sell him let me just double check what they sold him for. Unfortunately, I can't find the price that they sold him for. But they sold him to the Ishmaelites anyway. And they took his coat of many colors. They killed a goat and they smeared the blood on the coat. And then they took the coat to his father and told him that they found this coat in the bush. And so Jacob was torn apart. Was torn apart about what supposedly had happened. He mourned for Joseph for a very long time. The family tried to comfort him, but they could not. And the traders actually sold him to Potiphar, who was the captain of the palace guard. So Joseph was sold in Egypt. So this was a very, very sad story of a family that was not united. And the message is that as families, we should be united. Joseph did his best to try and be close to his family, to his brothers, and he didn't want to see them doing bad things. He was such a responsible young man. Even at his age, at 17 years, he could reason and see that these things were wrong, these things were right. But his family had people that didn't want to be told about the wrong things that they were doing. And as a result, they hated him. So let's learn from this story that as families, let's be united. And if we are united, we will be a force to reckon with. And no enemy will penetrate us as a family when we are united. I hope we have learned something from this story. Let's not hate each other as families. If there are things that go wrong along the way, let's reconcile, let's sort those things out and be united as a family. May God bless us as we think about these things. Amen.